Hey, what's up guys? It is EXF here with some Fire Emblem Heroes. Today I'm gonna do something a little bit different than my usual summoning videos, where I'm gonna be talking about the abilities of individual skills for characters and units, I guess. So I'm just gonna do this for one ability at a time for each video. It's gonna be like a little quickie, I guess. If you want to call it that, for Fire Emblem Heroes Quickie Talk, I guess. So today I'm going to be talking about Pivot. Now, this is one of my favorite skills, I think, in the game. Now, what it does, Pivot, now if I go to the Fire Emblem Heroes site here, I'm going to quote it directly. Pivot can be used by a tank to leap in front of a weakened frontline allies and block damage for them. It works great in tandem with a ranged attacker. After the ranged unit has attacked, a beefier ally can use Pivot to swap into the empty square in front to block the enemy's attack next turn. Just like Reposition, Pivot can be used to cross untraversable terrain with the help of a flying unit. If the flying unit stands on a single square of water or mountains, a unit with a skill can pivot around them, in the process jumping over the terrain in question. So to keep it simple, what it does is that you get to skip over one of your own unit, right? So if you have one unit in square 1 per se, and you're in square 2, then you get to go to square 0, that kind of thing. So now the units that can learn this skill, Pivot, inherently, is Shirshi, Marth, and Erica. Other than that, there's nobody else that can learn this, so you have to pass the skill, obviously, by one of these 3 characters. Shirshi is, I guess, the most common out of the 3 to pull for a summon if you want to pass this on to somebody else. And now, in terms of the benefit of the skill, now it's already been stated by the Fire Emblem Heroes website that it's more or less useful for a tank unit or a beefy unit because of the fact that you can pivot in front or move where you have your sweeping unit. So usually the best strategy to use a pivot is to have a sweeping unit deal damage or to defeat one of your opposing units, and then after that have a tank unit pivot in front of them to make sure that that sweeping unit is safe and to absorb all the incoming damage on the enemy turn. Now, one of the weaknesses about Pivot is the fact that it really can't work with any other units other than a tank unit. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't have Pivot on any other units than tanks, but in my opinion, I think it's a waste of a skill to have any other unit than a tank unit to inherit the pivot ability, right? So for example, if you have a horsing cavalry unit having the ability pivot, right? Cavalry units already have a great mobility with 3 movements. They have 3 movements, and then if you add the pivot, they can have an additional 1 more, given the fact that you already have your own units within the 4th square, right? So that makes your mobility, high mobility unit really vulnerable, just because you're at that point you're really far away from your units, right? Just to say, for example, you have 3 units with 1 cavalry in the back, and you have a really tanky unit really up in the front, and you want to pivot in front of that tank unit, right? So it makes this accessible to multiple attacks, right? So I wouldn't really suggest using it with a high mobility unit. Definitely with a lower mobility unit like tanks, which can benefit from having a pivot ability. Instead of having a movement of 1, they could potentially have a movement of 2 using the pivot ability. Now, of course, the advantages of the pivot ability, I've already stated that, most of the time, if you apply this ability to a tank unit, they can increase their mobility range, and they can protect your sweeper which usually sweepers usually are really low in their defenses and resistance. So to make sure that they're protected and they could counterattack after the tank unit has absorbed the hits from the enemy units. And of course, weaknesses. The main weakness for pivot is the fact that you have to use this ability to move, right? So you can't attack afterwards. And it is used on yourself. So you can't use this ability to act for another unit, right? So another ability, I guess you could say that it exposes your tank unit to multiple attacks, which is really what you want in the end, right? So your tank unit, you want to make sure that they absorb it. I use Effie. I give pivot to Effie, and Effie is one of the good lance tankers in the game. So using the pivots to traverse over mountains and to traverse into the enemy front lines to make sure that they absorb everything here. So that's just a little quickie, my thoughts on pivot. Let me know what you guys think. Did I hit the nail on the head on this one? Any other tactics that you guys use to make this ability a little bit more off meta, I guess, to use this ability in a non-conventional way. So I'm going to leave the video at that. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, we hit the 100 sub milestone. Subscribe and leave a comment in the video. I'll post the video in the end cards so you guys can click on that and enter into the contest. $25 Google Play giveaway. Thank you very much to all those people who have made me come to 100 subs. So definitely check out that video and leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next installment.